Zorn Vex had seen many strange things in his life. He had watched planets burn under the Quantum Dominion's power, heard the last cries of entire species echo through dead air, and stood beside Supreme Leader Drath Thor as kings and queens begged for mercy. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for the humans. The Galactic Council headquarters was a fortress of order, a place where power moved silently and heavily, like a black hole pulling all things inward. It was not a place for jokes. It was not a place for strange species to walk in like they owned it. But that's exactly what the pitch humans did. Zorn Vex was meditating, calming his mind before the Supreme Leader's arrival at the main chamber, when his assistant, Plink, nearly tripped over his own tentacles, bursting into the room. Ambassador Vex, Plink gasped. They've arrived. The humans. They've already docked. Zorn opened one eye, annoyed. That's impossible. They're not scheduled to arrive for another 2 rotations. They changed their mind, Plink squeaked. And then they've bypassed 3 security checkpoints. Somehow, they convinced Guard Captain Morza to give them a tour of the restricted archives. Zorn stood up so fast that his robe fluttered like smoke. They what? No weapons, no fleet, just one old damaged vessel. Yet they've already disarmed the whole building with their words. Zorn didn't understand. No species had ever crossed so many lines and lived. The archives, that was sacred ground. Not even allies were allowed there without blood-written permission. But the humans just walked in. By the time Zorn reached the upper balcony of the chamber, the humans were already at the entrance. The grand doors, 20 meters tall and made of obsidian aloes, swung open as if welcoming chaos itself. They looked ordinary. That was the first shock. The lead human wore a dark jacket, scuffed boots, and something called sunglasses, even though there was no sun in the chamber. He had a relaxed posture, hands in pockets, and a grin on his face like he was walking into a local bar. Not the throne room of the most feared ruler in 7 star systems. Zorn looked down at the Supreme Leader. Drath Thor sat on his bone throne, wrapped in ceremonial armor, the headdress of 1,000 spines arching behind him like a war god. His presence crushed most species with fear. His stare could cause neural collapse. But the humans didn't even blink. The lead human nudged his companion, a shorter one, chewing a strange stick, and whispered, "This guy compensating for something with that headgear or what?" The Supreme Leader heard it. Everyone heard it. The chamber, once thick with awe, cracked open with tension. Zorn's mind screamed. They've insulted him. They've mocked the Supreme Leader. There will be war. They will die. They must die. But Drath Thor didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, he let his voice rumble across the chamber. "Human, step forward and kneel." The human stepped forward. He did not kneel. He tilted his head, looked around, and said, "Sorry, do you not have chairs here? Or is back pain part of the job description?" Zorn could barely breathe. He is signing his death warrant. The Supreme Leader will tear him apart. With a thought, but something was wrong. Drath Thor's fingers twitched, his mouth opened, and then he laughed. It was quiet at first, a strange glitching sound, like static in the dark. But then it grew deeper, louder, until the chamber shook. Laughter. The Supreme Leader of the Quantum Dominion was laughing. Plink collapsed to the floor. Council members fainted. Zorn held on to the balcony rail, heart pounding in terror. "This is unexpected," Zorn whispered. No species had ever made the Supreme Leader laugh. Not once in 300 cycles. Not after crushing empires. Not after executions or planetary victories. But humans. They did it in 5 minutes, with a joke about chairs. Zorn's vision blurred as realization dawned. We are doomed. Not because they are stronger. Not because they are smarter. But because they are unpredictable, uncontrollable. Because they look at a god and laugh. From that moment, the game changed. The humans hadn't brought weapons. They didn't need to. Their weapon was their mind, their madness, and something more dangerous than any laser humor. And Zorn Vex, loyal advisor of Drath Thor, knew deep inside the Dominion would not survive this. Not because humans wanted war, but because they didn't take the Dominion seriously, and that was far worse. The Supreme Leader was still laughing. Zorn Vex stood frozen, watching the impossible unfold below. Drath Thor's voice echoed through the Galactic Council chamber like distant thunder, but it wasn't his war cry. It was laughter, deep, strange, and unnatural. No one knew what to do. The chamber guards didn't move. The council envoys whispered, in disbelief. Even Plink was crouched in a corner, trying not to scream. And the humans, they stood there, completely relaxed. The lead human, he had introduced himself as Commander Blake, grinned like a fool, and turned to his second. "You owe me 50 credits. I told you I could make him laugh." Zorn felt his throat tighten. What are they doing? Are they treating this like a game? Plink peeked up from behind a pillar. "Sir, I think they are." Zorn had never seen anything like it. No species in history had entered this room without fear. Some had tried to hide it. Others collapsed before they reached the center. One reptilian leader even bit off his own tongue to avoid saying the wrong thing. But the humans, they were different. Commander Blake didn't bow. He didn't kneel. He walked right up to the Supreme Leader's platform and said, "So, Drathkan, I call you Drath. Is there like a drinks menu, or do we just go straight to the threatening part?" Zorn closed his eyes. That's it. He's gone too far. This is how the war begins. But instead of death, Drathor leaned forward. "You are either the bravest creature I have met, or the most foolish." Blake just shrugged. "Why not both?" Again, the sound of laughter rumbled through the chamber. Felt his stomach twist. This wasn't just unexpected, it was dangerous. The Supreme Leader was unpredictable enough already. But now, something had changed. The balance of power, the rules of control, everything was cracking. Suddenly, a side door opened with a hiss. A group of Dominion strategists entered, led by General Yorix, a creature made entirely of coiled muscle and surgical implants. His eyes scanned the room and locked onto Blake. "You," he growled. "What is your purpose here? Why have you come?" Blake gave him a lazy salute. "Diplomatic visit. See the sights. Pet a space tiger, if you've got one. No games." Urox snapped. "You bypassed 3 security barriers. You accessed forbidden archives. That is an act of aggression." The shorter human stepped forward. "Actually, we asked. Captain Morza gave us the passcode and offered snacks." Zorn's face turned pale. A war veteran with 12 cybernetic limbs. He gave them snacks. General Urox looked to Drathor, his face burning with rage. "Supreme One, allow me to remove this infestation." But Drathor raised a hand. "No." Urox blinked. "But they insulted you. They violated our sanctum. They made me laugh." Thor replied. "But I said no." Zorn stepped down from the balcony, unable to hold his silence anymore. He bowed deeply before the Supreme Leader. "My lord, permission to speak." "Granted." Zorn Vexborn turned to the humans, choosing his words carefully. "Why are you truly here? Your vessel is damaged. You have no army, no weapons, no threats. What do you want?" Blake looked at him, and for the first time, his expression changed. The humor faded. His voice became calm and serious. "We came because someone has to be brave enough to show you what you've become." Zorn frowned. "What do you mean?" "You rule through fear. You crush worlds that don't kneel. You laugh at weakness. But that's the problem, you think. Fear makes you strong." Drathor's eyes narrowed. The room fell into silence again. "What do you think makes you strong, human?" he asked. Blake didn't blink. "We make fun of our fears. That's why they don't control us." For a moment, even Zorn didn't breathe. "You mock the very things that can destroy you?" the Supreme Leader asked. "Every day," Blake said. "We joke when the airlock's failing. We laugh when the engines are on fire. That's how we survived when we had nothing but rusted ships and broken hopes." Zorn stepped back. "They aren't weak. They aren't stupid. They're fearless in a way we can't understand." Drathor rose slowly from his throne, towering over everyone in the room. "You risked everything, just to tell me that?" Blake nodded. "Yup. And what if I decide that your courage is an insult?" "Then," Blake said, pulling something from his pocket, "we go to Plan B." The guards moved instantly. Weapons raised. Zorn shouted, "Wait!" But Blake opened his hand and revealed a single, harmless object. A rubber chicken. The chamber was silent again. Then the shorter human hit a button. The chicken squeaked. Drath. Thor stared at the chicken. Then he sat down, and then he laughed. Again, harder this time. The room trembled. General Urox fainted. Plink screamed and hid under the chair. Zorn just stood there, eyes wide. They are not warriors. They are chaos, and worst of all, they were winning. The council chamber hadn't returned to normal, that it couldn't, even after the humans were escorted to a private chamber for negotiation. The air remained twisted with confusion. The guards didn't speak. The ambassadors whispered as if the walls were listening. Supreme Leader Drath Thor had not said a word since he laughed himself into silence, and Zorn Vex, he was watching it all fall apart. They brought a rubber chicken into the most powerful chamber in the galaxy. Zorn whispered to Plink as they paced the corridor. A rubber chicken, it squeaked, Plink added helpfully. Twice. Zorn didn't laugh. He couldn't. Everything he understood about power, diplomacy, and fear was crumbling. These humans hadn't just walked in without weapons, they disarmed the entire political order by refusing to treat it seriously. But something darker gnawed at the back of Zorn's thoughts. This isn't just mockery, he muttered. This is strategy. They're hiding something. Plink blinked. What could they be hiding? Their ship is falling apart. Their pilot keeps asking where the nearest coffee dispenser is. One of them tried to pet a guard. Zorn stopped walking. That's what makes it worse. No species is this careless, unless they know something we don't. He turned sharply toward the Central Intelligence Wing. We need to find out what they're hiding. Inside the negotiation room, Commander Blake spun slowly in a swivel chair, feet kicked up on the polished crystal table. His second lieutenant, Halley Vega, sat cross-legged on the floor eating what looked like dried fruit from a silver pouch. Think we broke the galaxy yet? Vega asked between chews. Blake smiled. I think we broke the part that thought it was in charge. A voice crackled from the wall. This room is being monitored. Blake shrugged. Cool. We were gonna live stream it anyway. The wall went silent. Do you think they'll figure it out? Vega asked more quietly now. They'll try, but they're looking for weapons, ships, threats. What we brought isn't any of those things. Good, Vega said. Because we're fresh. Out of everything else. In the intelligence wing, Zorn stood before a massive holodisplay showing schematics of the human ship. The vessel was barely holding together old Terran metal, patched hulls, weak shielding, no weapons detected. The technician said, That doesn't make sense, Zorn replied. They walked into our most secure archives. They bypassed biometric doors. They accessed forbidden diplomatic records with no tools. The technician added, They weren't carrying tech. We checked everything twice. Zorn narrowed his eyes. Then, it's not about the ship, it's about them. He turned back, toward the chamber. Bring me every known file on human history, culture, psychology. I want to know why they laugh at power and what they really fear. Hours passed, and still, Drath Thor remained silent on his throne, eyes glowing dimly as the chamber remained sealed for reflection. Only Zorn dared approach. My lord, he said carefully, I believe the humans may be far more dangerous than they appear. Drath Thor didn't move. I know, you do. They insulted me, and I allowed it. Twice. Do you know why? Zorn Vex. Zorn hesitated. Because you found it amusing. No. Drath Thor stood, slow and deliberate. Because it disturbed me. Zorn's skin prickled. There was no fear in their eyes. Even when faced with death, they joked, as if death itself were a guest at their table. Drath Thor turned, his eyes piercing. I have faced armies, destroyed civilizations, broken monarchs, but never have I met a species that treats fear as a toy. Zorn swallowed. Then what shall we do? We invite them again, Drath Thor said, but this time, we test their limits. That evening, Blake and Vega were escorted to a smaller, darker chamber. Inside stood a large metal sphere covered in pulsating lights. A Dominion scientist greeted them with a wide, emotionless smile. This is a simulation pod, he said. It can project your deepest fears, memories, and mental stressors into a controlled environment. Cool, Blake said, peering inside. VR terror, got it. You will enter one at a time, the scientist continued. The goal is simple. Survive without mental collapse. Vega raised an eyebrow. What happens if we lose? You do not return. Blake grinned. What? That's inviting. Zorn watched silently from behind a screen, his arms crossed tightly. Let's see what shakes them. Everyone has a breaking point. Blake stepped into the sphere first. The lights dimmed. The sphere closed. Inside, a storm raged. Earth cities burned. Giant creatures roamed the ruins. A digital voice whispered in his ear, describing everything he'd ever failed to protect. Missions gone wrong, friends lost, homes destroyed, and Blake started laughing. Not wild, not mad, a soft, tired chuckle. Outside, the monitors flashed warnings: emotional instability, neural inconsistency. Subject unfazed. Inside the fear chamber, Blake walked through the burning ruins of Earth and whistled an old tune. You think this scares me? He whispered. We lived this. We joked through it. Because if we didn't laugh, we'd break. The sphere hissed open. Blake stepped out. Zorn blinked. You endured it. Blake tilted his head. You built a fear chamber. We come from a fear planet. Vega winked. Your trap needs upgrades. Zorn stared at them in silence. They are immune. Not to pain, not to fear, but to the control it gives us. Our greatest weapon means nothing to them. And that was the moment he understood. The humans didn't come to fight. They came to expose the Dominion's greatest weakness, that its power depended entirely on others being afraid. The news began to spread. First it was whispers in council halls, then murmurs across diplomatic channels, then full panic among outer colonies. The humans had walked into the heart of the Dominion and survived the fear chamber. Worse, they laughed. In it, Zorn Vex stood in the echoing halls of the Grand Intelligence Archives, staring at incoming reports with shaking hands. Thousands of species had tried that simulation pod before. None had come out stable. Some never came out at all. But these two humans exited as if they'd just taken a relaxing nap and made jokes on the way out. They've done something irreversible. Zorn muttered. Plink stood nearby, holding a data tablet. Sir, our communications network has picked up something strange. What now, memes? Sir Zorn blinked. Excuse me, visual jokes. The humans are sharing them with other species. Zorn snatched the tablet and stared at the screen. It showed a cartoon of Drath Thor wearing his ceremonial headdress, photoshopped to look like he was compensating for baldness. The caption read, Supreme Ego needs Supreme Hat. Zorn's jaw dropped. There are hundreds, Plink said. And the other species, they're laughing. This is an attack, Zorn whispered. Not with weapons, with ideas. Back in their temporary quarters, Commander Blake and Lieutenant Vega were hard at work on their portable transmitter. Not a weapon. Transmission sent to 5 outer systems, Vega confirmed. 6 more on the way. You included the joke about the throne room stairs. Yep, captioned it. Step into power, or trip into it, like Supreme Leader did on his way down. Blake laughed. Perfect. Let's see how long it takes for the cracks to spread. The truth was simple. They hadn't come to fight a war. They didn't have ships. They didn't need them. They brought the one weapon the Dominion couldn't fight. Freedom of thought. Drath Thor's throne chamber had never been this quiet. Zorn stood before him, sweating. My lord, the outer colonies are asking strange questions. They want to know why we fear your voice, why no one's allowed to speak freely. They say, the humans are making sense. Drath Thor's eyes flickered. The humans are fools. Chaos in skin. They should not be taken seriously. But they are, Zorn said quietly, because they are showing the others something they never had permission to laugh at power. Drath Thor rose slowly. Then we silence them. We send a message. Fear must be remembered. Zorn hesitated. They have no fleet. Killing them would not show strength. It would show fear. Drath Thor's voice became ice. Then break them another way. Later that day, Blake and Vega were summoned to a vast open courtyard. It was rare for the Supreme Leader to meet anyone outside the chamber. But this was no normal meeting. Zorn waited for them, flanked by guards. There's been a decision, Zorn said carefully. Oh, Blake muttered. Is this the part where you arrest us for being funny? No, Zorn replied. This is the part where we try to understand why you haven't broken yet. Vega crossed her arms. We already told you. We grew up in chaos. Your threats are familiar. Zorn looked between them. How did your people survive? Your records speak of wars, climate disasters, even fighting each other for centuries. Blake nodded. We didn't survive because we were strong. We survived because we adapted. And because when everything looked like it was falling apart, we told jokes. That's insane, Zorn said. Exactly, Vega replied. And insanity is what kept us sane. Meanwhile, across Dominion systems, the memes kept spreading. On warships, junior officers passed them secretly through encrypted side channels. In trade hubs, aliens laughed behind closed doors at cartoons of the Supreme Leader mispronouncing Earth food names. And in council meetings, delegates who once trembled now whispered, if the humans can laugh, maybe we can, too. Drath Thor stood at the top of his observation deck, watching a star burn in the distance. Zorn approached carefully. My lord, our own soldiers are requesting breaks for something called comedy hours. Drath Thor said nothing. They are watching human files. Videos of people falling, laughing, dancing, in chaos. They are happy. Thor finally turned, his voice low. Then it's already begun. Zorn frowned. What has? The collapse, not from outside, from within. The Supreme Leader stepped forward. They're not spreading rebellion. They're spreading a virus of thought, humor, disrespect, independence. And once that spreads, no army can stop it. In their quarters, Blake stared out the window. We'll be escorted out soon, he said. Expelled, maybe, or executed. Vega didn't flinch. We did what we came to do. He nodded. We didn't change their laws. We changed their mood. And sometimes, that's the first domino. Outside, stars shimmered, as if they, too, were laughing. The Dominion began its counterattack, not with weapons, not with fleets, but with silence. All across the star systems, under Supreme Leader Thor, memes were banned. Human images were erased from networks. Public broadcasts were taken over by official messages reminding citizens that laughter is disorder and order is strength. Zorn Vex stood in the central communication hub, watching as Dominion technicians rewrote protocols, shutting down message nodes one by one. Cut off the source, one general said. No more human influence. But Zorn knew better. It's already inside them, he muttered. You can delete the message, but not the memory of hearing it. In their holding room, Blake and Vega stared at a blank screen. Their connection to the outer systems had been severed. No music, no memes, no signal. They've gone full lockdown, Vega said. I guess we hit a nerve. Blake leaned back and smiled. Good. That means the virus worked. But then the door opened, and for the first time since their arrival, Thor entered the room. Himself. The guards stepped back. The air grew heavy. Even the walls seemed to stiffen. He walked slowly, deliberately, like a storm gathering strength. Blake stood, nodding politely. Nice of you to visit. Thor said nothing at first. He walked to the edge of the table and looked directly at Blake. I could destroy you, he said softly. Right now, with a whisper. I believe you, Blake replied calmly. Then why are you still smiling? Blake met his eyes. Because even if you destroy me, you can't kill what we've already started. Thor's voice deepened. You've broken the order that held this galaxy together for centuries. You made people laugh at fear. That kind of madness spreads like fire. Exactly, Vega said from behind Blake. You can't fight fire with silence. Zorn appeared at the door, tense and pale. My lord, please, don't do this. Thor turned slowly. Why? Zorn stepped forward. Because if you destroy them now, they become martyrs. Their story will spread faster than we can contain. They'll be symbols forever. Thor stared at Zorn, silent. Then he turned back to Blake. What do you want? Blake didn't smile this time. His voice was quiet. We want a conversation, not submission, not control. Just the right to exist without kneeling. Thor looked at the floor, his voice like distant thunder. You think laughter can protect you? No, Blake said. But it can protect others from becoming like you. The Supreme Leader slowly walked away. No word spoken, no gesture given. Just silence. And when the door closed behind him, Zorn remained. You've shaken something in him, Zorn said. Blake looked up. Can it be rebuilt? Zorn sighed. That depends. Are you done spreading your message? Blake stood. We haven't even started. On the outer worlds, the silence didn't hold. Small laughter clubs formed in underground chambers. Secret message relays sent joke files disguised as technical blueprints. A puppet version of Thor's headdress started showing up in street art. The harder the Dominion pushed to stop it, the faster it spread. Plink sat across from Zorn in the intelligence office, holding a strange item. A whoopee cushion, sir. Zorn frowned. What does it do? Plink squeezed it. It made a sound. Zorn stared in horror. And people are laughing at this. All species, sir. That evening, the Supreme Leader summoned his war council. The generals spoke of force, mass arrests, example executions. But Zorn finally stood. My lord, he said, we don't need warships. Then what do you suggest? Let them speak. Let them broadcast. Unfiltered. The room gasped. Show everyone that humans are not gods. Let them see that they are flawed, chaotic, strange. Give them stage time. And why would that help? Thor asked. Zorn looked him in the eye. Because then, if the people still follow them, means your power was never real to begin with. The chamber was silent. And then Thor nodded. Let them speak. 2 days later, a message was broadcast live across Dominion space. No filters, no edits. Every screen, every station. It showed 2 humans sitting in a plain room. Commander, Blake smiled at the camera. Hey there. I'm not a god. I'm not even special. I'm just a man with bad hair and worse jokes. Vega added, we're not here to rule you. We just wanted to remind you that laughter doesn't mean weakness, it means freedom. The message ended simply. You don't have to fear everything forever. You're allowed to breathe. Even here and across the stars, people started to breathe. The broadcast changed everything. Not instantly, not loudly, but like a crack in a dam. Small and slow until everything breaks. Zorn Vex stood alone on the rooftop of the council spire, watching distant transport ships flicker across the sky. Something was different in the air. It wasn't fear, it was lighter, quieter, curious. They heard it, he whispered, and they didn't turn away. All across Dominion space, the human message spread, recorded, shared, remixed, translated, not by order, not by law, but by choice. The Dominion had ruled by silence. Now silence was broken. It began on Virelin Prime, a species called the Trivaxian Six-Eyed, iron-boned, famous for following orders without questions, topped mid-training exercise. Their commander ordered a speech on loyalty. One soldier raised his hand. Permission to tell a joke, sir. Silence. Then the commander said, go ahead, and the soldier told a joke about a Trivaxian accidentally welding his foot to the ceiling. The unit laughed, not out of fear, out of joy. It was the first official Trivaxian laugh in 600 years, and once they started laughing, they couldn't stop. Other systems followed. On Zykor Station, an art student painted a mural of the Supreme Leader slipping on a banana peel. In the Zenthari High Courts, one magistrate wore a ceremonial headdress made of noodles to protest absurd rulings. And in the capital itself, rumors began that the guards were practicing jokes in the barracks. Zorn knew what it meant. It's happening. He told Plink. The idea is no longer just human, it's growing. Plink looked nervous. And what will the Supreme Leader do now? Zorn didn't answer, because he wasn't sure anymore. Inside his throne chamber, Thor sat in stillness. The walls displayed reports of all unrest. Laughter riots, public dancing, pie-throwing incidents, political cartoons. His voice was low. They're not afraid anymore. Zorn entered quietly. My lord, he said. Permission to advise. Speak. Zorn stepped forward, hands behind his back. Crushing them now will only feed the fire. But if we listen, just once, we may gain something we've never had, which is a loyal galaxy, not out of fear, out of choice. Thor looked up. His eyes, once glowing red, dimmed. Choice, he said softly. A dangerous thing. Back in their room, Blake and Vega received a visitor, not a guard, not a diplomat, a child. She was Zenari, with scaled skin and wide green eyes. She carried no weapon, only a small tablet. I brought you this, she said. It's my joke. Blake knelt. A joke, just for us. She nodded shyly. Why did the Supreme Leader sit on a rock? Why? Because the chair said no politics allowed. Blake burst out laughing. Vega high-fived her. Thanks, she whispered. You made my brother laugh last night. He never laughed before. And just like that, the humans knew. The idea had passed to the next generation. Later, Zorn stood before the humans once again. You've done something I didn't believe was possible, he said. Made Thor smile. Blake joked. No, you made people believe. They didn't need to be scared anymore. Blake grew quiet. We didn't plan for that. We just showed up. Zorn nodded. And now, others are showing up too. What do you mean? There are ships coming, Zorn said. From peaceful factions. From former enemies. They want to speak to Earth. Not for surrender, but for connection. Blake looked at Vega. She smiled. Looks like the quiet galaxy just got a little louder. In the next 24 hours, 29 different species requested direct diplomatic channels with Earth. Not because of power, but because of laughter. Thor stood in the high tower of the spire alone, watching the stars flicker with new colors. Zorn approached, slower this time. Cautious, my lord. Shall I prepare the retaliation plan? Thor didn't turn. No. Then, what shall we do? The Supreme Leader looked up. Tell the humans. They have one cycle. One cycle to prepare a message for the entire galaxy. If it's foolish, I'll erase it all. Zorn's eyes widened. And if it's not, then perhaps the Dominion must become something new. The countdown had started. One full cycle. That's all the humans were given. A single opportunity to speak to the galaxy, not with power, not with ships, but with words. If they failed, Drath Thor would erase every trace of their presence. And worse, he would silence every species that dared to laugh with them. Zorn Vex stood inside the broadcast chamber, heart pounding as technicians prepped the systems. He had never seen this kind of tension before, not even during wars. Plink approached nervously. Sir, the humans are preparing something strange. Zorn didn't flinch. Of course they are. Inside a quiet studio built by Dominion engineers, Blake and Vega sat facing a glowing sphere. Every planet, outpost, and ship in the Dominion would receive the transmission. Blake took a breath. Is it rolling? Yes, said a voice behind the console. The humans looked at each other. Then Blake leaned forward and spoke. Hello, Galaxy. His voice echoed across the stars. Let me tell you a story, Blake said. Once, there was a tiny species, weak, divided, chaotic. We fought each other, burned our own homes, laughed at the worst times. Vega continued. We were a disaster. No fancy fleets, no perfect leaders, just messy people trying to survive. Blake smiled, and then we looked up. We saw the stars. We realized something. Vega nodded. We weren't alone, and that scared us. But also, it gave us hope. Zorn watched from the control room. His eyes didn't blink. Even the technicians were still. The Supreme Leader, too, watched in silence from his private tower, eyes glowing softly. Blake went on. When we finally reached space, we didn't bring peace. We brought questions, wonder, and jokes. Vega grinned. Because we knew something most people forget. Fear is heavy, but laughter flies. Blake leaned forward. We know we're strange. We know we don't kneel well. But we also know how to stand up. Not in anger, in unity. Vega's voice turned softer. You've seen our chaos. Now we want to show you our heart. The screen changed behind them, images flashing. Humans sharing food with aliens. Children from two species building a toy spaceship. Dominion guards watching a comedy clip and laughing. An elderly Zenthari smiling with a human doctor. Blake and Vega sitting with a crowd of different species. No weapons, no fear, just laughter. Zorn felt something stir deep inside him. Not fear, not even awe. It was belief. Blake's final words echoed like thunder. You were told that fear keeps you safe. But that's a lie. What really keeps you safe is each other. Vega added. So laugh with us, cry with us, grow with us. We're not perfect, but we're human. Blake smiled gently. And we're here to stay. The screen went dark. The message ended. No applause followed. No fireworks. Just silence. But this silence felt different. It wasn't fear, it was choice. Across the galaxy, different things began to happen. On Brelos 5, a Dominion mining team played the message 3 times and hugged their Zenthari foreman. In the frozen world of Marvel, where no one had spoken freely in decades, someone painted the word hope beside a human smiley face. And on a battleship called Dominion Wrath, the crew quietly shut off weapons training for the first time in its 90-year history. Zorn walked into the throne room, where Drath Thor sat motionless. My lord, Zorn said, voice calm. Drath Thor didn't look at him. They didn't beg. He finally said. They didn't threaten. They offered something. Zorn nodded. They offered a new path. Drath Thor closed his eyes. I've ruled by fear for 300 cycles. And now, a joke breaks my empire. Zorn took a deep breath. No, my lord, you were never afraid of the humans. You were afraid of a galaxy that didn't need you anymore. In the courtyard, a group of Dominion guards stood around a datapad, rewatching the broadcast. One of them chuckled. Humans are weird. Yeah, said another. But maybe that's what we need. The cycle ended. The humans didn't know what would happen next. Would the Dominion retaliate? Would Drath Thor strike back? Or would something entirely new begin? The stars were silent. The Dominion's fleets once symbols of absolute control, quietly above dozens of planets. On those worlds, across stations and cities, species held their breath, not because they were waiting for war, but because they were waiting for a decision. One man, one ruler, one voice. Drath Thor. Would he crush the humans? Or would he listen? Inside the throne chamber, Zorn Vex waited. The air was heavy, Even the guards stood unsure, their armor gleaming, but their faces blank with uncertainty. The doors opened. Thor entered slowly, without the usual flair. No dramatic lighting, no war drums, just footsteps. He approached the center of the chamber and looked around. Then he did something no one had ever seen before. He removed his headdress. The room froze. Zorn stepped forward. "My lord." Thor looked at him, tired but calm. "For cycles, I thought power was about being feared," he said. "But now, no one fears me." He paused, his voice quieter, "and somehow, I feel lighter." Across the galaxy, messages began to spread. A single sentence appeared on Dominion screens, "Let them speak." On Brelos 5, workers cheered. On Varellan Prime, Travaxians played a recorded human comedy over a public announcement system. And on Earth, thousands gathered to watch the broadcast replay from Dominion space. Humanity had done the impossible. Back in the Council Tower, Blake and Vega were called to the center stage. A place once reserved only for the Supreme Leader now had to chair simple, metal, and equal. Zorn addressed the crowd. "These two arrived with no army, no threat, and no demands. But they gave us something far more dangerous." He looked at them, an idea. Blake smiled. "Don't worry, we've got more where that came from." Laughter echoed across the chamber. Not nervous laughter, not forced, real. And that meant everything. Later, Thor stood at the edge of the upper balcony, watching the stars. Zorn joined him. "You could have destroyed them," Zorn said. Drath nodded. "Yes, but then, I would have destroyed myself, too." Zorn looked out with him. "So what now?" The Supreme Leader was silent for a while. Then he said something so quiet, so human. Zorn almost missed it. "We start again." One cycle later, a new council gathered, this time with humans sitting openly beside Dominion leaders. Old enemies exchanged jokes. Artists painted new banners. Musicians played Terran instruments beside alien harmonics. The galaxy didn't become perfect, but it became free, and it all began with a laugh.